Folks, let's look at problem 3.8 on page 126, John's Gear Company. Now here, John produces 4 different types of gears, G311, G450, G517, then G619. He can either outsource them or he can produce in-house. So those are the 2 options that we have. Let's say solution value, if we were to outsource it and get it made, that's the row here. Or if he decides to make it in-house, solution value manufacture, that's the second row here. We don't know what is the best combination. We want the solution to tell us when we solve what is the best way for him to go so that he can maximize the profit. He may end up outsourcing all these 4 gears production, or he may produce all 4 of them in-house, or he can go partly outsource and the rest make them in-house, and it can go either way, but we do not know what is the best. But nonetheless, whether he outsources or he manufactures, the selling price per unit is the same. That's given to us in the problem. Okay, that's given to us in the problem. Okay, and now the purchase price, if he outsources that, so he can get this so 1 unit of gear 311 can be made for $7.50. But he charges $12.50 to sell it, so he makes a profit of $5. That's the difference between the selling price and the procurement price. Okay, so likewise, we have the information in the problem for the other 4 gears, and we get the unit profit for the other 3 gears the same way. That's the difference between the 2. Okay, now, if you were to produce in-house, then it goes through the manufacturing process that consists of forming, hardening, and deburring. And this is the amount of time, for example, G311 takes. It takes 0.3 hours in forming, 0.2 hours in hardening, 0.3 hours of deburring. Okay, so the labor rate, just like the other problem that we saw, is given to us as $9 per hour for forming, 8 for hardening, and deburring is $7.50. So get the labor cost per unit the same way as that. The amount of hours that is consumed times its respective hourly rate, add them up, so that gives us what is the labor cost to produce that. And likewise, the same thing for G415. Once you have the formula and fix the references properly, you just copy and paste the formula and then go back, double click it and make sure that you have done it right. I mean, I may have repeated this several times, but I need to reinforce this all the time. Okay, so that gives us that. So if he were to make it in-house, this is the profit per unit that's going to be. Selling price is $12.50, manufacturing cost, which consists in this case of labor, is the cost that is over here. Okay, material cost is not given to us, so that's the reason why I do not have the material cost in the problem there. Okay, if it is, then just do it like the other problem that we did. Okay, so that gives us the profit, and now the profit is going to come from the 2 sources. That is the sum product of. If he were to outsource, this is where we get how many units that are outsourced times the respective outsource unit profit. Sum them up. If you were to produce in-house, then the number of units produced in-house times the profit per unit that they make by doing in-house, add them up. So the total profit, which is we want to maximize, is the profit from the outsourcing and profit from manufacturing. So that's the sum of those 2. That's what we want to maximize. So here is, if you were to be producing in-house, the number of hours that are consumed on forming, that depends on how many units we produced, times the respective consumption rate. That is the total hours used for forming. And likewise, for hardening, the number of units that we produce times the consumption rate on this resource, add them up, that gives us the total hours used in hardening. Likewise, for deburring, should be less than or equal to what's available. And there is also another thing, that's the total gears that are produced. Total gears either procured or manufactured, that combination, okay, so which is nothing but sum of those 2. We may decide to partly outsource and partly make in-house. I'm not sure what it is going to be, but nonetheless, that's what we want to find out. The total number of gears, that is the sum of manufactured as well as procured from outside, that is less than or equal to 300 is all what he can sell. So likewise, that's the same thing for all as given in the problem. Okay, so that has to be less than or equal to the maximum gears promised, that is 300. Let's go, let's set up the solver, maximize the total profit subject to the decision variable, which in this case is this entire block. Okay, entire block. Add the constraints. The total hours used should be less than or equal to the hours available. Another constraint is the number of gears procured and manufactured. That combination should be less than or equal to the maximum promised. There we have. Click OK. Options. Check these two boxes, linear and non-negative. Click OK and solve the problem. Okay, I have done a mistake. Let me fix this mistake here. Found a solution. Okay, let's go ahead. Let's solve the problem. So get the solver. The mistake that I had done before was this was kept blank, and that was not chosen. So I had nothing in the target cell, and I was maximizing, and you saw all zeros at that time. Okay, so maximize my profit. Changing variables are that area, that range of cells. Subject to the constraints, hours used less than or equal to available. The total gears obtained, okay, should be less than or equal to maximum promise. That's what we have. Solve the problem. Found a solution. All constraints satisfied. There you have. Here it says G311 make all 300 in-house, produce them. 415 outsource completely, and also G517. For G619 outsource 260 units, produce 440 units in-house. You'll use 108 hours out of 120 hours available. Only 73.2 hours in hardening. Deburring you will use all. So if you look at this constraint, deburring is the tight constraint here, so this is a critical resource. Okay, so that's the reason why you did not produce more in-house, because this is a constraining factor. If you were to get more hours in deburring, certainly you will see a little bit more manufacturing activity than outsourcing activity, and your profit is going to go higher.